Alright, so Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Like my previous video game reviews, this is an initial review. It's not a final score. Opinions are subject to change. Quality of game may be subject to change as we get further, but I'm about 6 hours in, and I'm only about 6 hours in, about 3 areas in, but I'm also 6 bosses in. There's a lot of mini bosses in this game, which might as well be considered actual bosses because of how fucking hard some of them are. So this game plays a lot differently than Dark Souls 3. Somebody told me when I bought this game that this game is easier than Dark Souls 3. That person is a fucking liar. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is extremely hard, but it's not the usual From Software kind of hard I'm used to. I'm used to hard but fair. This game is not even fucking close to fair. So let's get into why that is. So listen. This game has not so great level design. Okay, it's actually really poor. Dark Souls 3 did a great way of training you how to play a game. The first boss is really easy to see coming. He telegraphs his moves. He's easy to punish. The initial enemies in the first several areas move slowly. They telegraph their attacks. Their attacks are easy to distinguish from each other. Each attack has specific wind-ups, specific positioning, different speeds, different amounts of damage. You can learn relatively quick how to play. This game does not have that advantage. Even the earliest enemies can do things like 4-hit combos. They can move erratically. Some of even the earliest bosses perform feints. They trick you into thinking they're going to do something and do something else. And that normally would seem kind of cool and add almost like a get good factor to the combat, except for how precision heavy this game is. You can't really get away with blocking very much. This game also gives you multiple very different ways, very different from other FromSoft games, to move. You can jump, you can dash in a lot of different directions, and at first you might think that you can play footsies with your enemy and poke at them from a distance and shit and get away with it. That doesn't continue for very long. There are a lot of enemies, especially the mini-bosses, and believe me, we'll get to them, that have weird phantom ranges on some of their attacks, especially enemies with spears. If you think you can jump over the spear, you're fucking wrong. It'll hit you out of the air even though you're nowhere near the weapon. And oftentimes trying to dash to the side, you'll end up getting hit by the spear despite the animation of the spear being more than a foot away from you. So there's phantom range problems that are a big fucking deal. There is a stealth emphasis on this game, and stealthing, at least in the first few hours, the first few areas, is very easy. It is in fact the best way to kill a bunch of enemies, to trick them, to confuse them, to get them to look the other way, and then stab them. They're not very perceptive, they don't hear very well, and they're not hard to backstab. That's a very good thing. And that's about as easy as it gets fucking with the enemies. Because like I said, even the initial enemies, there's a major difference when you're dealing with the most important way. That what the game is definitely being very clear that the combat is based on is what they call the deflect mechanic, which is more or less a lot like Dark Souls 3 parrying. It's precision based, it's very time based, there's very few frames per second that you can get away with doing this. And I found very frequently that the first few enemies where you're being taught, there's even a training guy who teaches you, okay, I'm going to do this 4-hit combo, and if you mash L1, you will deflect, and queue up a death blow, because you're fucking up my posture meter, which is kind of like this weird almost health bar for poise almost. It's kind of weird. That is only true of the enemies that use that specific move, which is like one of them. There are many bosses that you clearly have to deflect multiple times in a combo in order to not get hit. And if you're doing improper timing, you're only blocking and losing your whole posture bar. And if you're doing really bad timing, you're just getting hit over and over and over again. And when you're dealing with an enemy who feints, who it's very difficult to tell which move he's doing, the Hirata Estate mini-boss, the Shinobi Killer, I haven't gotten past him. He's one of the guys I haven't gotten past in the branching pathways. He can do one move that can be deflected, or even better, do I think it's called a Makiri stomp, where you stomp their spear down and it causes way more posture breaking, which is good, but that's even harder to do in a different button. Or he could do like a 6-hit combo that you have to be precise on every last move for, and you can't mash. At first they say, oh, you can totally just get away with mashing L1 to block this sword combo. Doesn't work on that guy. Doesn't work on that guy at fucking all. Okay, you know, the first couple of mini-bosses are so exceptionally easy. These samurai dudes, they're such punks that they're not teaching how to play because they're too easy. And then you immediately run into two bosses, mini-bosses I should say, who are so fucking miserably hard that they are so unreasonably difficult that I can only imagine how fucking hard this game is about to get. Chiefly, who you definitely probably saw in some early game footage, is the Raging Ogre, the Red Eyes Ogre boss. That boss is a cheating scumbag pile of bullshit, and after several hours, several of the 6 hours I've played this game, mind you, or might be 7, were just throwing myself at that boss over and fucking over. And when I beat him because he never did a specific move. Okay, I mean, the strategy guides say get towards him and circle to your left. That killed me every fucking time, so Extra Life already let me down. He has a weakness where he is stunned if you use a certain fire move, and he's stunned and takes damage over the time if you douse him in oil and then set him on fire. But even that, it only helps kind of. It can accelerate the amount of damage you do up to a certain degree, but it doesn't really feel like a true boss weakness because the Raging Ogre has so much health, so goddamn much health, that it beggars belief. It takes a long time to kill this boss. He doesn't really have any true weaknesses. Now, it is true that you're going to want to stick to him and circle strafe. However, there is a specific grab move he does, which basically one hit kills you. And if you're right next to him and he performs this animation, there is only maybe 1 or 2 places near him that you can stand within a distance of 3 dashes. You can dash 3 times in the windup he has for this move. And if you do it wrong, he will kill you. You can dash back, 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 he'll kill you. You can dash side, 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 he'll kill you. You can dash behind him to the side, he'll kill you. He tracks too well, and the major thing about all of his grabs, but chiefly the specific diving grab I'm talking about, has a fucking gigantic, completely fucking broken phantom range. More than 5 fucking feet of phantom range. It's unbelievable. Sorry about my dog. It's insane. So because of that broken hitbox, because this attack tracks, and because you're so close to him, you're completely dead if he does this and you're in a specific kind of range around him. Meaning that the only way I ever beat him is when I did the stick to him strategy and he never did that move. That's not a good thing. I got to where I'm kind of stuck at right now is a boss that is well after the red-eyed boss, or the red-eyed ogre boss, who I would say is probably easier than him, and I will probably not take near as long or as many attempts to kill, General Oniwa. The problem with General Oniwa is the strategy to beat him is to get good at deflecting. The problem is he has a very, very wide range of strikes that all have very, very, very different deflection timings. And thankfully, he's not unreasonably hard to block without getting your posture broken. The problem is when I'm repeatedly thinking I'm deflecting, I'm tapping rather than holding block, and it's clearly, the game's clearly telling me his posture is not increasing, mine is, meaning that I'm thinking I'm deflecting, but I'm actually only blocking him. And that's happening like 7 out of every 8 times I press L1. I'm not deflecting properly. And it's really hard to practice when he's got 7 or 8 different kinds of strikes. And then he'll, gain distance from you, and you're supposed to, and this is a major thing that is the most important thing, beyond even their actual weakness, for both him and the Raging Ogre boss, is you need to get specifically the Shinobi Arm Rope grapple attack, which is not the ability to grapple the boss, because it very clearly shows you should grapple the boss when he does specific things. However, if you grapple the boss when he does specific things, you're kind of only just getting closer to him, because while he's stunned, you'll just harmlessly land on the ground and you can't hit him unless you have this specific skill. So that skill you should rush to. Other skills I've tried out using have either not had any enemy that is something you can deflect with the move, like the jumping deflect doesn't seem to matter right now. I should have rushed to the Estus Flask, whatever the fuck it's called, the gourd healing better. I should have rushed to that because the shit I have been picking have not been useful yet. So there's kind of a right and a wrong way to spec, or to go through the skill tree, I should say, which is already kind of, I don't like that. And the other thing that's really, really, really bad, and I might finish with this because I've tried to do this review and talked for 30 minutes, but it was mostly about bullshit hitboxes. The level design is not really teaching me how to play. The enemies have wide move pools, which, you know, would maybe up replay factor, but it can make it exceedingly hard to get through a grouping of enemies and not get hit. There was one mini boss I wanted to talk to that I haven't talked about, that I haven't beaten, the Hirata Memory mini boss. I'm sorry about all the fucking wildlife, the geese. Fucking, god damn my fucking dog. That boss, you need basically a pretty specific shinobi arm move to beat two of his guards, who are like the wooden shield guys. They are a titanic pain in the ass to kill, and you can instantly kill them if you have that move. So it's very bad for you if you don't get that move. God damn it, I wish they would get rid of those geese. But the only problem is that boss is harder to rush to because of those two guys that you have to kill, and then immediately within 15 feet of that boss are 4 enemies. And if you want a decent chance to sneak attack that boss to remove his first health bar, and then not having ads interrupting you fighting him when he cheats so much, when he feints so much, when he fakes you out, when he has moves that can almost instantly kill you or instantly kill you if you don't have full health, and he's such a cheating piece of shit, it sucks that there's 4 enemies immediately around him that you basically have to sneak attack kill without pulling him in order to sneak attack him to have a better chance of killing him when he could just instantly kill you. This is a boss run to that mini boss that takes upwards of 10, maybe even 15 minutes, only for him to instantly kill you. At least the Raging Ogre and General Oniwa, you don't have to kill a single enemy to boss rush them. Actually, technically, you need to kill 2 to 3 for the Raging Ogre, but it's damn near 15 seconds. And General Oniwa, it's about 15 seconds, you don't have to kill anybody. So that Hirata Memory guy is such bullshit. That's bad level design. It's not fair because you can't even just run by everybody. They will follow you all the fucking way to the boss unless you hide and take 10 minutes of just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for them to return back to their positions where you can maybe pull them again. Which brings me to my last point that I'm really hating about this game. Unlike any other Dark Souls games, you can't grind health. You can't grind levels. You can't grind to get more damage. You can't grind to get more armor. And you can't grind to get better weapons. I am stuck at the tiny amount of health I have right now. And I do no damage to these bosses. Fucking none. Especially to the Raging Ogre. I fucking don't do shit to him, which is a major part of what makes him so unfair. If his hitboxes weren't bullshit, he'd be fair. If his health was low, even with his bullshit hitboxes, he'd still be fair. The fact that both of those are a problem with him means he needs to be patched. Fucking period. Because he's not even technically the first boss. He's the 5th mini-boss, or 4th or 5th mini-boss, depending on which way you go, before the fucking main boss. And the amount of times that, like, the enemies aren't training you how to play, like, especially with the mini-boss Samurai right before General Oniwa, he has all these stances that don't mean anything. Because he might even be conditioning you to say, this means I'm going to thrust. And he'll do like this, and then he'll sweep. Or then he'll start doing something that looks like he's about to sweep, and then he'll thrust. And you have to completely 2 different ways. You have to jump, kick, counter, sweeps. And usually when you see the sweep coming, you'll reflexively just back up because it has no range, but then you can't get a punish in. The thrust requires very specific timing to get a good punish on the boss with, particularly with the Mikiri counter, which has less frames to do it than a traditional deflection. And then General Oniwa and the spear guy require all these very precise multiple deflections to do, or otherwise you're just not filling the boss's posture bar, and you're either getting hit or getting posture broken yourself. And it's really not fair. And the bosses have too many moves, too much erratic movement, either too many ads around them, or they do so much damage that you can't really get a feel for the boss before he instantly kills you. And again, I beat the shit out of Dark Souls 3. I've beaten New Game Plus 2 already on it. It took me a long time to do, and early on, especially in the original game, the way I kind of got past a lot of stuff is if I was really, really, really stuck, I'd either get better gear or level grind. Those are not an option in Sekiro. You can only grind moves, a lot of which don't really help you. So you can't grind for an advantage, really, like at all. Meaning that you're just stuck slamming your head against enemies that are either too difficult to be reasonable this early on in a game that plays nothing like any previous FromSoft games, or you're stuck. And unfortunately, one of the bosses, I didn't get good. I got good RNG. That's not good boss design. Though the Raging Ogre, I depended on RNG to beat him, because if he had a specific move and he did that specific move, I was dead. There was no way to get away from it. At least this General Oniwa guy, you can block him somewhat without getting posture broken and try to pick at him. This General Oniwa guy, even if you're not deflecting precisely, you at least have a half-decent chance of blocking. At least with this General Oniwa guy, his hits take more like a third of your health bar instead of fucking all of it. At least with this General Oniwa guy, you can get some advantage with doing the grappling rope attack where you pull into him and hit him. And he's not all that hard to posture break. But he's still very difficult, and he's not the first boss. He's technically the 6th boss. And some of the mini-bosses are harder than him and have about the same amount of health as him. And even though he's more intimidating and he's got a horse and he has this cool moveset and shit, the fact that he has less health, does less damage, and is not necessarily as hard to beat, even though I haven't beat him yet, just because I've only made about 10, 20 attempts instead of like 100 against the Raging Ogre, that's not good design. He either should have came before some of these other mini-bosses, or the game should have given me some better ability to grind, or with the case of like 2 of these mini-bosses, like the samurai guy before the snake, I think. Yeah, I think he's before the snake, and the snake is before General Oniwa, right? The samurai general before the snake is not that hard to kill, but he has a lot of ads around him that if you want a chance to fight him, you're going to have to kill all of them. He is a slow boss run. The same with the spear guy in the Hirata State, the shinobi killer. It takes an exceedingly long time to attempt him. And with the case of the shinobi killer guy, he's so fucking good at killing the fuck out of me within 10 to 15 seconds of me engaging him. That's me taking somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes just to get another shot at him, only for him to instantly kill me. Over and over and over again, where I can't even get a feel for what he's trying to do because he's instantly fucking killing me. Over and over and over again. So, in conclusion, thankfully I got this review down to 20 minutes. This game it's not fun in the first 6 hours. The first 6 hours of this game sucks. The opinion is subject to change. It's not to say Sekiro itself sucks. I'm liking the gameplay for the most part. I'm liking the stealth sections. I'm liking everything that's not a boss. The thing is, there's 6 fucking bosses in like 3 to 4 fucking areas. Meaning that most of what I have been doing is fucking with bosses. And there's no advantage to me repeatedly throwing myself at regular enemies because I can't grind at all. I can only grind teeny tiny amounts of money to buy a few moves, and that's all I can get out of it. I can't get stronger. I have to beat bosses to get prayer beads, because this is the God of War Devil May Cry style, get 4 things to get more health and do more damage. There's no way to be a scrub and get a scrub's advantage by grinding. This requires a level of getting good that at this point in the game, compared to 6 hours into Dark Souls 3, is way more good, with some dependency on RNG and no way to get an advantage. And each of these bosses have weaknesses that don't give more than a slight advantage. Meaning there's no fucking way around even with the guide. It's either the game demands perfection or you do not progress. Which is far more masochistic than any of the Souls games I've played. And the only one I haven't played is Bloodborne, and I haven't played Demon's Souls, but whatever. This is so much harder, and not in a fun way. It doesn't feel like hard but fair. It feels like hard and unfair. And there's just no rhyme or reason to the difficulty curve so far. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, in just the worst way. So yeah, 20 minutes review. Sorry about how long this took. I cut it down 10 minutes, but really, so far, my initial experience is this sucks. It's not fun. It's really not fun. It's not completely horrendous, but, you know, the last thing I want to mention, by the way, is this game is butt fuck ugly. I didn't really mention this before, but I'll just get this out of the way now, because I don't find graphics to be that important. This is bottom of the barrel PS4 graphics. The PS3 and Xbox 360 could render this game as far as I could tell. This game does not look anywhere near as good as Dark Souls 3. This game barely looks as good as Dark Souls 2. It's really ugly. At least it runs really smoothly for me so far. No frame rate issues at all. But that might be on account of there's not a lot of sprites on the screen, hardly at all. And the game is ugly. It's hideous, dude. I just don't care, but some people might honestly be appalled at the low quality of the graphics in this game. I mean, it's not like the ugliest thing ever, because even the ugliest PS4 games look good-ish, but that's the best you could possibly say. It looks good, you know. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this game right now. I don't, hate it, but I kind of hate it, guys. My initial experience, and I really hope it smooths out. Maybe there's more branching paths, a little bit better chance to either grind or practice, but there's not a whole lot of games so far with a lot of high difficulty bosses that are just requiring a sheer repetition and luck to beat, and that's not a good thing. Anyway, sorry about all the dogs barking and geese and shit. I gotta go yell. I got my grandma over and shit. She's probably pissing off all the animals in the backyard. Anyway, see you guys.